Welcome back to the Nerdrotic Podcast. My name is Gary Buechler. I am live in San Francisco, California. I come to you from nerdrotic.com. And down in LA, as usual, for the gifted is Jon Reed. What's up, Jon?
How's it going, man? How did you how's your Monday go? Happy Monday. It's the beginning of the week, you know.
I usually have this day off and I had to work.
That's not a good Monday.
Yeah, it is what it is. Made a few extra shekels. So that's all right.
That's good. Yeah. Shekels are good. You know who else made a few extra shekels? Eclipse made a few extra shekels tonight on the side. Carmen's back.
Yay, Carmen San Diego.
It's funny because this show is one of those shows that's like sneaky. Like a lot happens in a sneaky way. Like this was definitely the filleriest episode to me so far of the season. I might be wrong about that, but I felt like this was a lot of lead up to whatever's going to happen next. Like we got a side story with Blink and Thunderbird. We got a side story with Carmen and Eclipse, where, you know, two of the most badass mutants on the show go after him in a really cool way, which I really like. So you get kind of those side stories. You get the kind of romantic relationship between Lauren and Wes, and the Wes story of did he lie or did he not? Is he a good guy or is he a bad guy? That sort of stuff. So, you know, we had our mole alerts going on Wes last episode, and it seemed like they tied that up this episode. So it seemed like a lot of lead up to like some big reveals at the very end of the episode. Did you feel the same way?
I did. I actually thought the episode moved better than most of them this season. It didn't feel, I mean, it was filler, but it didn't stay on like the Strucker family too much and their drama. You know, we only had the short scene with Kate teaching. You know, little bits and pieces of that are totally cool. It seemed like in past episodes they stayed on them a little long. This one moved for me really well.
I want to talk about that scene with Kate teaching. It totally reminded me of like what I've always wanted from an X-Men show or movie. Like I want like the kids in the classroom learning random stuff from a mutant teacher that relates to, like, I just felt like that was a scene out of the comic books in such a big way, although they were younger, right? But the mutants that she was teaching were younger than you would imagine in an X-Men book. But I really just loved the like, oh, here's a little weird mutant classroom scene. And I'm digging that. I dug that more than I'm digging Polaris trying to train the teenage mutants, like just by chucking shit at them for 2 episodes.
I know.
And they even referenced that, which was funny. Like Andy was like, "Hey, if I ever get attacked by a piece
of tile,
I'm good." And that's kind of what we were saying. Like she's throwing saw blades and roof tiles at him and just being like, "Duck, go!" And it's weird trading, but so I'm digging Caitlin's teaching techniques more than Polaris's training techniques.
I think that's hilarious the way Polaris is training. I think it's funny. Yeah, that's one of the things that a TV show can do that a movie can't. Is, you know, you're basing your source material is a huge volumes of serialized material with all these just little moments that make this that make the X-Men special.
Yes. It's more, it's built for serialization, right? Like the X-Men more than anything else in the Marvel universe is like a teenage angsty soap opera, right? It's like the OC for the comic book world with powers. And this, to me, this show kind of delivers on that in a way that the movies are unable because they don't have as much time to develop long-standing storylines and relationships, right? So do you, like, I actually saw somebody write an article about that saying The Gifted is the X-Men, you know, movie that like the X-Men that we've been waiting for that the movies couldn't deliver. Do you kind of agree with that, or do you see this as just a different format?
No, I absolutely agree with that. Once the whole movie thing runs out with superheroes, once we've kind of gone through like seeing Thor for the first time or Silver Surfer again done right, or we've gone through the gauntlet of superheroes, we're going to want good storytelling. We've done the exposition, and that's all the movies are, is just exposition. What makes these things special is the storytelling and getting into like the detailed storytelling, like Spider-Man's Kraven's Last Hunt or a Dark Phoenix saga done right. Dark Phoenix cannot be done in a movie. It couldn't be done in 3 movies. It couldn't be done the way it was done in the comics. It could
or
be
the cartoon. It was done in the cartoon really, really well.
Really well.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
The X-Men cartoon has made more X-Men fans than the comic.
Yep.
I still believe that to this day.
I believe it's what made the comic fans. Like the X-Men cartoon came along after the bankruptcy, right? Like at a perfect time after the X-Men had been sold off to Fox, and that's how they were able to make the cartoon. And it came at like a perfect time for a bunch of people my age, which is, you know, a couple years younger than you.
Or decade, maybe.
I think kids my age grew up with the X-Men like at the perfect time. It was like we were almost teenagers to where the powers were cool and the the relationships meant something to us at the age that we caught it. And I think that that's what hooked the people who are now liking The Gifted at that moment. A lot of the people. The Gifted also reminds me, and I'm like maybe the only person who liked this run of the X-Men, but Chuck Austin did a run of the X-Men where Polaris came back with Havoc, and like it was really soapy. I don't know if you remember that.
Oh no, I remember her making armor out of the silverware in a wedding when she was pissed off. She
got left at the altar. Yeah, man, that was like. Exactly. That's the exact stuff. Like no one else liked that stuff, but I loved it. And I feel like this show, as much as it's drawing on some of the bigger storylines that we know, has like at its core that tone, that kind of just angsty tone.
Oh, the much maligned Chuck Austin. You know, Chuck Austin would look like a classic comic writer today. That guy got so much crap back in the day, and man, he is nothing compared to what's out there today. So bring back Chuck Austin.
Yep. Because you recommended the Captain America Ice run to me after I said that I liked that X-Men run. And that's some of my favorite Captain America stuff too. So I don't think he's for everyone, but I do think his style has influenced the tone of this show, maybe accidentally. If people were like looking at Polaris comics to write this character, I feel like some of those must have been in there because her angst is shining through in this episode for sure.
Let me throw in a quick editor's note. Captain America Ice was a story where Namor lets Captain America know that the government knew he was frozen the whole time. And it was a really messed up story. So pick that up if you can. It's art by Jay Lee. So
also good.
Also good. But the Gift, X-Men is made for TV. It is. I think all comic books are made for TV. Just look at the Netflix stuff. Look at Daredevil. The budgetary. I'd rather give up some special effects or have like I still want special effects, but just make them. They don't need to be perfect. If I get good storytelling, I'm a fan of Doctor Who, which has got the worst special effects ever. So, but it's good storytelling. So,
what's funny is that it's almost like the crossovers would work better as a movie, but you need the storytelling lead up to happen in like a serialized television format. It's almost like if you could take the CW method of making TV shows, like these comic book shows, like the Arrow and Flash, like make them better, right? Give them like, make them more nuanced, and then do a big movie that crosses over all of those characters so that you have all the exposition, and then you have just this huge massive 2-hour event of like the Avengers. Like
that's what Star Trek.
I feel like that's what we could do. Yeah, exactly. Star Trek.
With the original cast. Yeah, that was use that model as like have a long seasons, and it kind of failed with with Next Generation and the X-Files. The first X-Files movie was good, but you
have to execute. But the idea is
to execute. The idea is there, and it's happened in the past.
So the three storylines, this episode, which one do you want to start? Which one's the most interesting that you want to jump in on first?
I'm gonna say that I liked the Carmen thing was pretty cool.
Let's do so the main players in this storyline were Carmen, Eclipse, Polaris, and Dreamer. And what I really loved about this was seeing Polaris and Dreamer break into the cartel building. And like Suzanne turned to me while we were watching that, and she was like, that's a powerful duo. And I was like, yeah, those are the most badass characters on the show right now. Those two could kick some serious ass together.
That was on my notes, is like, I want a show of them, like a Thelma and Louise mutant show. I would be totally cool. I've said that every podcast. I'd be fine with just Polaris. But her and Dreamer together, I wanted more of that. That quick little scene was great. That was great.
But more. Give us more.
give us more. And we got a little bit of the CW. Well, we got a lot of it this episode. There's a lot of secrets this episode. And I actually thought they rounded up well with Eclipse. His explanation of the whole thing was just
it's legit. Like, he has to do this.
Yeah,
I'm on his side here. Like, I know that maybe he's going about it the wrong way, but like, I'm legit on Eclipse's side. He needed to get to Polaris to get her out of jail. He thought that was his only way to do it. There were strings attached, and now he has to play those strings, or it's, you know, so I see where he's coming from. The little like kiss on the cheek moment was a little much for me. Like,
yeah.
Where do you think that's going? Is this a
real
real
well, I tell you what, I'm married, and I've been married to a woman who was pregnant. You do not lie to them. You do not piss them off, especially when they're like a level 5 mutant. Not a good idea. So now I'm not taking a side on this one. I probably would have, but now that I've experienced that, no way in hell I'm gonna tell her the truth, take my beating then, and not like make it worse, especially when pregnant lover sees Carmen kissing Eclipse on the cheek, and he has that, he still loves burning stuff a little bit, so he looked like he was enjoying that a little bit too much.
He was in Reaper mode.
Yeah. So yeah, not a good decision. I think all of these secrets could have been handled like up front. Okay, I think the lesson of this episode is just tell people. Okay, don't keep. I know it's great for drama, but it didn't work out very well for anybody actually. And it didn't even make it sound like telling the truth was such a great idea either. They because nobody won on this one, but that was because you kept the secret in the first place.
Yeah.
The Carmen thing, I could definitely see this like going dark. I think it would be really cool if, remember when she threatened him last episode, like, I'm going to turn you into Sentinel Services. Yeah, she better be careful. She better be real careful, because I think, he's protecting a child at this point, Eclipse is. So I think, killing the head of a cartel who happened to be your ex-lover might be problematic.
Yeah.
Especially since Daddy isn't dead. He just gave her the business. So I think if this continues, I think we're gonna see Daddy at some point, and maybe that's what we're doing.
How much of that do you think we're gonna get? I mean, they're already alluding to Stephen Moyer's Reed's dad. We've already met his mom. How much of this, like, the generation before has set all of this in motion, and how much do you think they're going to come back into play in this show?
I think it's going to be important, especially with next week's episode, knowing next week's episode. And not that we're ever going to see Magneto, but we're going to find out. They even said that we're supposed to find out that Polaris is Magneto's daughter. They're going to come out and say it.
Yeah.
Whether she knows that at this point in the show or not, I do not know. I would imagine she does, maybe suspects. I think it's going to be important to this show, especially with next week's episode.
Yeah, I definitely want to touch on that stuff maybe toward the end, because there's a lot of stuff at the end. But I also wanted to talk about the Blink storyline, because that was my favorite stuff for some reason. Like, it was probably the most inconsequential as far as the whole storyline is concerned. But
repeat that whole last 30 seconds. You completely froze up.
Oh, sorry. So
that's okay. No.
I feel like the Blink stuff, even though it seemed a little bit inconsequential in the grand scheme of the story, was really like an interesting thread to follow in this episode. Like, it was such a dark story of her going to her home and finding out that, I guess it seems like maybe the family who took her in has been slaughtered. Do we know what happened here? Like, were they just looking for her and they stormed in and just killed everyone in the house? Or, is like, what happened here?
It looks like that's exactly what happened. And that's crazy. Now it was Sentinel Services. They had their little tag on the door. So they stormed in with guns to a house that was hiding children and killed the people who ran. That seems a little crazy. Because it seems like Sentinel Services is tempered a little bit by the law. Not much, but we had the DOJ talking to them this episode. So yeah, I want to know what led up to that. It seems like I think they were insinuating that they were going after Blink. So Blink is having, she can't remember much of anything. So she's
interesting,
really,
right? Like
yeah,
for our theories, like that's real interesting that there's this family that's taken her in, or these people that have taken her in. They're gone now. They've been slaughtered by Sentinel Services. The house is empty. Blink doesn't remember a ton of what happened before that, or even of that. That leaves a lot open to what could be going on with Blink, right? Like it doesn't play into the general story of this season that we're seeing with the Underground, but I think it plays a lot into how she's going to eventually fit into this story if we get to see it, if it doesn't get canceled. So
yeah. She'll be part of whatever goes down at the end of next episode, whatever it is.
I think the love triangle is an interesting love triangle that they've set up here with like Blink had a lot of really good one-liners tonight. Like they're setting her up as a very sympathetic, likable character. Dreamer, they're setting up as like a badass, but a little bit like not as likable. So I think we can see where that love triangle is probably going with Johnny. But she's had to make some hard, like Dreamer's had to make really hard choices so far, and she's been selfish at sometimes and selfless at sometimes. It seems like Blink is the kind of like hook into this group, the new person in this group, one of the new people in this group. So I don't know, where do you think that storyline is going? Like I feel like Dreamer's screwed in this.
Dreamer is, and I don't know if she's going to turn on Thunderbird. Or she's manipulative.
Yes,
not horribly manipulative, but you can see the potential. You can actually see the potential in her and Lorna to be bad. Like if this group ever split up into like an X-Men faction and a Brotherhood faction, you can see who two would go with the Brotherhood for sure.
Mm-hmm.
It would be Dreamer and Lorna and Polaris.
And Sage, I think, could also go. She seems very like we know that she in the comics, Black Queen of the Hellfire Club at one point, right? She could easily come out of this thing, evil. She seems very nice right now. I like that we got more Sage tonight, but I think she's one of those that kind of can walk that line too. Very analytical. She's
just kind of there right now. We need to flesh her out a little more, but hopefully as time goes on, and that was the great thing about this episode was it moved a lot and it filled in a lot because I was needing that. I was needing a little more and.
That opening scene, I was thinking about you and kind of the discussions we've had about the Gifted, like knowing how this fits into the X-Men, how did this team come up, right? And we finally get to see the recruitment of Eclipse by Johnny and Polaris, and like it seems as if they were partners, Polaris and Johnny, in setting up this Underground, and they pulled Eclipse in at some point. So we still don't know if maybe Johnny was there first and he brought in Polaris, or if they were both set there by the X-Men. We know Johnny was sent there by the X-Men. So what did you think of that? Like that opening scene when I was watching it, I was like, this is the scene Gary's been waiting for.
Yeah, that I definitely needed that. And it was cool. And it makes sense. The Thunderbird can track he's able to find out information about everybody. He's the perfect mutant for this. And he's got powers on top of that. Yeah. There's always been mutants who can track other mutants, but there's never been one who's like a badass
Superman.
Yeah, pretty much Superman. And he acts like Superman. And I'm starting to like Thunderbird a lot more. I'm really liking him as a leader, and I'm like, God, it's kind of making him a little better than he is in the comics. And that's, that's the way it is.
I agree. He's like a better version of Cyclops in a few ways. Like I like where they went with Cyclops, but when Cyclops was the Boy Scout leader of the X-Men, that's his role in this show. And I'm liking him, man. I dig it. I like where they're going with it.
No, it just reminds me of, I'm a little pissed at Fox that they, like I said, when I went to con, they promoted the hell out of this show. It looked like, wow, we're going to get 25 episodes, and we get 9 episodes, and we still haven't heard if it's going to be picked up or not. And I think it deserves to be picked up. I'm into it. I've bought in, and I see the potential for this, but this is freaking Fox, man.
Yeah.
You know, so
Yeah, I'm a little worried. I wasn't worried until this week. I felt like we reached a point where we should have heard about this renewal if they were going to do it. We've heard about pretty much everything else that's on the bubble and that we've been waiting for in the genre TV realm. Shows that we didn't think were going to get picked up, got picked up with full seasons next season. So I'm a little bit worried.
I don't know how much you can trust. If you go to IMDb, there's like an interest meter. Now, I don't know if that's interest in you clicking on, I think it's just interest on you going into the show and finding out what's what.
Yeah, what actors are there.
And I looked at 3 shows. I looked at Star Trek Discovery, Mr. Robot, and The Gifted. Star Trek Discovery and The Gifted were both down like 24%. And Mr. Robot's up 28%. So, which, but I think
feels right
episode by episode too. So I think the interest will tick up because this was a better episode than last week, I feel. With Thunderbird though, and the whole, like, there was a lot of consoling hugs between him and Blink. So I was waiting for him to make out on that third hug or second hug. I was like, just do it already. Come on. Especially when with Dreamer and Lorna being together and both of their men are like helping other women,
helping other girls.
Yeah, that was.
I didn't actually think about that. You're right. Yeah, these two guys went on these missions with the girls that they're not with. That's interesting. I didn't really put that together. That's awesome.
It's got to be really hard to hold this Mutant Underground together. For one, you got to keep it secret in a major American city. You got tons of mutants there, and you got to make sure they're all quiet and they're all in the up and up. And then you have teenage drama and 20-something drama within all that, which leads to emotions and people ratting other people out. I can't see this lasting long, the whole Mutant Underground. I don't think that base is gonna be something they're in every season. I think eventually they're going to go on the run or something. I don't know. I know that gets expensive for a TV show to go on the run, but it would almost make sense because it looks like they're setting up, if this thing continues, like they're going to, have the team together and then they're going to start splitting them off and stuff.
Well, I was actually thinking it might go the opposite way where we learned that there are a bunch of other mutants that have been brought together by the government as sleeper agents at the end of this episode. And there's a lot of them. When they ran into that room, that's like as many people as in the underground, right? Like it's a lot of adults that have been programmed as sleeper agents. I could also see the show taking them and using them to bolster the ranks of the underground, like turning them back to their side, like Pulse, like getting Pulse back and getting all these other guys to their side and bolstering the underground and expanding it and making it more like a school run by like the inmates running the asylum type of a thing. Like you don't have Professor X there organizing the school. You've got Thunderbird. He's a young kid. He doesn't know how to do this thing. And I could see it really becoming more X-Men like, instead of becoming more like Runaways, like on the run type of thing. I don't know. It could go either way. I would prefer it to go the Exiles way that we've been talking about, where they're exploring where Blink comes from and seeing these other realities and other, learning about other mutants and stuff like that. I think that could be really fun. I feel like the show is trying to play it a little bit safer than I would like. I love the show. This is still the show I look most forward to of the new shows that we cover. But I do feel like it's playing it a little bit safe. Like they don't want to, it's only 8 episodes or 9 episodes, right? Like every episode could be just this big thing. Like you could really take a lot of risks and make this show really like a tight arc of comic books, but it feels like they're telling a very short story in a long way, and it shouldn't feel like that. Like it seems like they're trying to stretch out time in between learning about Sentinels and having this big conflict happen between the Sentinel Services and the Underground. And I feel like they could have either done that quicker or had more going on during that time. And so just like story-wise, I'd like to see them branch out of the like Fox, like serialized, like semi-serialized procedural mindset. Like this is what this episode is about, like, and have it be much more of like a Buffy style show.
Yeah.
So I hope they go that way. I think they could.
they have to sooner than later. They're going to have to because this kind of TV is not going to work for very much longer.
Yeah.
It's changing. Yeah, and also, with back to the Mutant Underground, I know they've talked about how they use their powers to deflect people away. Sentinel Services has to be really incompetent to not find this place.
It's a huge building. That is a very large building.
That's the one thing that stands out on me. But with the Sentinel Services thing, even the Dr. Campbell thing, who doesn't think this is going to end badly for everybody? Even Jace is understanding, oh shit, when he walked into that room and saw those mutants, like there's no way you're keeping them down with a tattoo or some drug or something. They all look very unhealthy.
Yes. Yeah, they don't even shave them. Like, it's bad.
Yeah, this is going to be bad. This is going to be really, really bad. You're going to make all the good mutants mad, and the ones who survive when they're going to all break free at some point. And it could be next episode. We don't know. It's going to be very, very bad. And it's just going to make things worse. And then, we have the whole Sentinel Services scene where they drop the bomb of Trask. They bring up Trask, which was cool.
Okay, so we get the DOJ, and we get Sentinel Services is kind of working with DOJ. DOJ is saying, like, hey, you guys need to chill now. Like, we've been through this before. This never ends well. Like, let's put the brakes on some of this stuff, take a step back and reevaluate. And so Campbell had been telling Jace, like, hey, I've got these sleeper agents all over the place. We can basically just send them in and just activate them whenever we want. And Jace is like, that's crazy. And so he does it to the head of the DOJ, or at least the DOJ representative that's there in that meeting. And she's, incapacitated. They have to put somebody new in that. And Dr. Campbell is basically like, hey, we've got a couple weeks now. We bought ourselves some time. Let's go after these guys. And so he's kind of put like a timer on this thing. Jace is a little sketched out, which makes me feel like, why did they go through the process? Here's what I want to know about Jace. Why did they go through the process of making his hatred for these mutants so much stronger by having Dreamer mess with his memories and having to have him go through the loss of his daughter again, just to turn around 2 episodes later and have him start to come around about, like, oh, maybe we're going too far, right? Like, it seems like they're pushing him in this direction to then pull him back in that direction. It just seemed weird to me. I don't know. Did you have that thought at all?
Yeah,
or did you think about that?
Definitely, especially when Dr. Campbell mentions, oh, Grace will be proud of you. And he looks at the picture of Grace and you can see him going, no, she wouldn't.
Yeah, exactly.
So weird, maybe the thinking is by doing that, it makes, by the death being a little fresher in his head, that he's actually more connected to it. Because since the death, he has been slowly getting, I'm just assuming, by the way, more and more disconnected and more focused on just hating the mutants. So now that the death is fresh again in his head, maybe it's kind of a way of him seeing more clearly. I'm just trying to find it out for the right.
No. So actually, if you guys, all you guys viewing this, listening to this, let us know in the comments what you think about what they've done with Jason the last few episodes. Because I'm curious. Like, we don't know where he's going to end up at the end of the season. I'm assuming that he's going to come out sympathetic to the mutants soon. Like, that seems to be where they're going with it. But he could also go the other way and just become mutant killer one, number one on Sentinel Services hit list. So let us know what you think they're doing and why they've made the decisions they have so far. If you've gotten this far in the episode. But what did you think of them dropping Trask being in charge of Dr. Campbell's private contracting company that is Trask Industries?
Well, that's what we think. Well, unless did they come out and say that? I can't even remember. Okay, yeah, and then
holding the Trask briefcase at the end. Once they revealed that, and that Reed's dad worked for Trask for 20 years or whatever. Once they revealed that, we saw, we saw Dr. Campbell walking around with a Trask Industries briefcase. So yes, they've confirmed.
Okay, I didn't even see that part. Yeah, that's crazy and cool, and that's a direct connection to Days of Future Past. And no, I think that's making it more connected to the Fox movie universe. I think it's good. I think it's actually a good thing. We're this far in, love it or hate it, they have built up quite a world, and that way they don't have to world like I was bitching last episode, they don't need to world build that much because it's built.
Again, I mean, it's about the execution, right? Like if you go in and draw on all the bad stuff of the Singer verse, it would not be good. But because they're going in and using that as a basis, a foundation of our ability to say, oh, this is where we are, and then using good things from comic books and their own imaginations to create like these cool connections, that is the way to go about it. And like, I still think it seems as if they've cast this show to put them in spandex costumes. If you look at the body types of the people on this show, Thunderbird, the Strucker kids, like these are built individuals that would look good in costumes. And I feel like they're moving in that. I don't know. It seems like you would cast these people. It would be stupid not to start putting them in like really cool costumes. I don't know.
Yeah, I think they're playing it safe at first, and they're playing it safe ratings. But it could definitely develop into that, and that would be really cool. Do it sooner than later. You know, maybe do this for a season, maybe 2, if you get a second one, and because if they go to costumes, they'll get more people watching.
More than any other TV show. I look at this cast, and they, aside from being very diverse and good actors, they're also like really pretty people. Like all of them, the guys and the girls are just all like this would look like that. Like you look at 90s Image comics and you're like, no one would ever look like these people. Fucking look like those characters. It's crazy. Like these are, you know, Rob Liefeld body types that we're talking about on this show. So I know I don't pronounce his last name very well, but yeah, it's I don't know. I feel like they need to get these people in costumes.
You pronounce his name as well as he draws feet.
Yeah, exactly. I guess they do have to all cut off their feet to be.
We're gonna get assaulted with X-Men in the next calendar year. We've got Legion coming out. We've got the New Mutants, and then the Dark Phoenix, whatever. I don't know if they're gonna call it the Dark Phoenix saga.
They are. It's Dark Phoenix.
It's Dark Phoenix. So that's all coming. And
to be fair, though,
Deadpool.
New Mutants is not.
Yeah,
Deadpool. How can we forget Deadpool too?
Yeah,
the New Mutants is not really. Something. Here's where they're being really smart, though. They're giving something for everybody. You've got Legion for like the thinking man's mutant TV show, right? Like it's a very cerebral, cool, stylized, high production value show. You've got Gifted, which is the like serialized angsty teen drama or like young adult drama version of the X-Men. You're going to get New Mutants, which is the like a horror version of the mutant story. You've got Deadpool, which is like the adult rated R comedy, you know, like action comedy version. They are diversifying the genre. Like, and I think that is super smart. And like, to me, my favorite part of the drama or of the genre is cool powers, angsty social dynamics, and that's what the Gifted is. And so like that's why I think I'm digging the show. But they're being real smart about expanding and making it not just like, hey, here's the Avengers over and over again like Marvel is doing, or like, hey, here's Flash and the Arrow over and over again like they're doing on the CW. Like they are being very smart about giving different things for different people so that they can at least get some people, you know, hooked on one version of this thing. So I think they're being real smart.
I think they are too, and it all still feels like very loosely it's all part of the same universe. It all shares. I wish they would do a little more of a connection to Legion, but maybe we'll get that later. It is the same network, but who knows? This all could go away. I mean, with the possibility of Disney buying Fox or Fox properties, which I kind of think is dead now, but it's out there now. So what if WB comes in and scoops all that stuff? We don't know, and this all could just end. That's the bummer part about this, and I think that is changes.
Enjoy the journey, Gary. Everything's going to end one day. I mean,
it is. Hopefully, just not too soon. That's
exactly.
That's all I'm saying.
Just like life, so are the X-Men properties.
Yes, very inconsistent and ruined by Bryan Singer. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah. Sorry.
Oh my God,
say something way worse, and
I know.
Drew it back in.
Let's talk about the younger Struckers a little bit. Like that was the other storyline we got, was this dude Wes. Reed comes across his criminal record. He's dating his daughter, sort of, or wooing his daughter, courting his daughter. And they find out that he has a criminal background. He robbed a jewelry store. He's done some shady stuff. And this is where Reed talks to Sage and says, like, hey, what's the policy here? Where we get the kind of cool Sage moments that we haven't gotten before. What do you think? What did you think about this? I think this was the main crux of the Carmen stuff was the main crux of this episode, but this, I think, plays more into the overall story for me. Like, this is more, I like the stuff about the Mutant Underground. Like, what's going on here? What are their policies? Like, who's this kid? Like, how do they treat people within their rank? Like, who's in charge? Like, what did you think of all this stuff going on with Reed?
It was a good way to endear Reed to the group a little bit and to his daughter, and to kind of be the father, because they are kids. So the Struckers are slowly becoming, the mommy and daddy of the group.
Yeah.
And he has a lot more work to do. And this was kind of a way of showing us like how Reed is dealing with now. He's like this prosecutor who's on the run, and he still has to, he still wants to keep his honor, and he's thinking things differently. But the way he brought it to that kid, instead of being a prosecutor and just throwing him to the wolves, that was cool. That was very father-like to do.
He opened up. Yeah.
He was also being a bit of a nosy, guy. Yeah, he had to go through the files. It didn't get the end result. It almost started a fight with his daughter, but that's what you got to do. I thought it was good. And it also showed the dynamic of the group. Like, this is really an honor system, but it's also good. That's their flaw. It's a big flaw that they don't really vet these people a lot. So I think it was showing that, hey, there's some honor. The people here are honorable, but that's going to get exposed.
So I haven't loved the Strucker family so far. Like, I've really liked Blink and Polaris. Eclipse has come around for me. Thunderbird has come around for me. The Strucker family, which is kind of the hook of the show originally, was always kind of not my favorite stuff. But this episode, I loved the dynamics that they created. I liked Reed breaking down a little bit, breaking down the walls a little bit, opening up a little bit about like, hey, this has made me question how I look at the world, but I still believe in rules, and that rules are important. And like, going into all that with Wes and kind of showing us into his personality. I loved seeing Caitlin with the young kids, and she's teaching them about like evolution and how it plays into their lives through like plants. And I liked seeing like Lauren having a relationship with this guy and being a little bit rebellious, but her relationship with her brother. I like even the moment where like her brother's just spooning like mac and cheese into, like, he lifts the bowl up and just spoons mac and cheese into his mouth. Like, as a family unit, that all those little touches, the banter, like, it all really endeared me to the family. And I think going into the next episode, where it's going to be a lot about this family, I think this was a good time for that to happen, because I'm much more connected to those characters now.
Yeah, and the show's centered around them, and yeah, I don't think I'm curious to hear what other people think about them. They don't annoy me. They're there, and I know they're the most important part of this show, but I can see them being criticized like a lot.
Yeah.
Again, it doesn't annoy me, but I'm like you, I am way more interested in the X-Men that are there,
Yes.
and I think that maybe we're getting set up for one of them to die. Or
one of the Struckers. I still think the grandma is probably the most likely, if any of them. I don't think
she hasn't been in it that much, though. Yeah, I don't know. That's going to be something that's going to be a problem as the show goes ahead. Like, how often you can tell this family story. This isn't a 50s TV show, so sure. I think it'll get broken up in some point. There's a lot of interesting ways, and Matt Nix is a very good writer. So, there is a lot of things you can play with, but eventually, I think you just got to, shows change as they go on too. And they get data back, and they realize, well, people are way more interested in Polaris, so we're going to get more Polaris, and they're going to go to the background. It happens. People get recast. Yeah. It'll be interesting to see if this show pushes forward, what they do with that. Cause I am not sure. Like I said, they're not annoying me now. They're good. They're a good thing, but it could potentially be very annoying.
Brian in the chat says he thinks they've done pretty well in making the family believable.
Yes.
He hopes that they don't go too teen bubblegummy and they keep the darker elements of the show. And that's what I think they're doing is they're balancing like the young adults, because there's like different generations, right? Like we've got the old, like we've got the grandfather, we've got Reed's dad, right? His generation, who's kind of set some stuff in motion that we're learning about. We've got Reed's generation. Then we've got the Polaris, Eclipse, Thunderbird generation, and then we've got like the kids, right? So we've got kind of like 4 brackets here, and I feel like they've done a really good job of balancing like, hey, the younger you get, the less dark the show is going to treat you. You're going to be a part of this world, you're going to have crazy dark stuff going on, but like Reed is dealing with much darker things than you know, Johnny is right now, and Johnny's dealing with much darker things than Andy Strucker is, and I like that they're kind of using that balance with so many generations at play.
Yeah, and that's a good word for this episode. It was very balanced, and like almost perfectly balanced.
Yeah,
it'd be cool in the future to see like the kids deal, like the kids are going to be thrown into a very dark situation where they have to, like, oh yeah, especially, you know, I think Carmen will present the first dark situation.
Well, I think Blink this episode dealt with something very, very dark.
They didn't even clean up the blood.
I know that
looked fresh. Yeah.
I didn't actually expect that in this show. Like I watched this with my wife, and we were watching it, and I was like, I didn't register how it had gone. Like I didn't think that that's where they were going to go. And Suzanne was just like, when they opened the door and the blood was all there, she's like, whoa. And I was like, yeah, I didn't expect that from this show.
They did cut open somebody's stomach.
That's true. But you know, operations and stuff is different than like, hey, here's where like a family was slaughtered. You know, like, I don't know. It's different for me to see like Blink going on a journey back home to find the people who made her feel most comfortable in her life, to find out that because of her, they had been just massacred. Like that's some heady shit, you know? Like, so sorry, I know I'm swearing a lot in this episode, but it's crazy. It's crazy to me that they're able to balance that with like, hey, Lauren's got a crush on this guy who can make pictures of the Grand Canyon, you know, like you're right. The balance is there, and it's so interesting to have all this stuff going on in one show.
What I want to happen with Blink is she's the reason the X-Men and the Brotherhood are gone. Like she gave them their exit to get out, or one of those two reasons, that maybe somebody made her forget Professor X.
That would be interesting.
Yeah, that I think she is the key. That would be very interesting. I hope it's just not she made a portal for some friend and he died through it or something like that. I hope it's not something that simple.
Yeah, I hope so too. Look, it could go so many ways. It's hard to predict. But I don't know.
What's the name of the final episode?
Yeah, they've made decent choices so far. So I hope that again
of Extinction is the name of the next episode.
Oh, that's gonna be crazy. So hopefully we get some battles, and we need some stakes too. I think we need to start seeing some characters get into some perilous situations. I think the closest we've gotten is Reed's arrest and Blink getting really, really sick and opening up all those portals. Can you think of anything else that's been really scary, like where we thought something might Eclipse got shot once, right? But I feel like we haven't had the peril that we need to be on the edge of our seats with these characters.
Not since the first episode with the little Sentinel
spiders,
the Spider Slayers. I never felt any danger in this, with the Russians and who was that mutant with the messed up face?
Shatter.
Okay. No, not Shatter. The one that was Carmen had.
I forget it. That guy.
I didn't think anything bad would happen there, except for Lorna finding out. That could be pretty bad. If she's anything she's like in the comic books. But
I hope we get some massive stuff next episode.
It looks. I don't know.
I know. It's tough.
Yeah.
This is a tough show because it like you said, this was such a balanced episode that it almost felt too like a little bit by the book, like a little bit too network TV, even though it was like really good network TV. And so like I'm waiting for them to break out and give me the feelings I got early on in the season again. And it's been a couple episodes. Like this was a good episode of TV. They've all been good. I just am waiting for that breakout moment, like the Ned's, like something that happens in Game of Thrones at the end of the first season. Like there's things that happen in these types of TV shows or in TV shows that make them kind of like iconic. And I'm waiting for that moment. I'm waiting for, like you just said, Polaris to like make a suit of armor out of like spoons and go like knock some heads or something, you know? So I don't know. I'm waiting for that moment with that show.
This show needs to turn it needs to be Buffy. It needs to be Buffy and Angel. It's tailor made for it. It's got the cast for it. It's got the writer for it. It's just missing that little, it needs to do this, you know, the beginning, you know, Buffy had a rough beginning too.
Yeah, it did. It was halfway through season 2 that Buffy became Buffy, you know? So yeah.
Needs to be a little, I guess, a little funnier at times. I know it's very dark, and that's the thing, is that it's dealing with such dark subject matter. I mean, they're basically the Jews being hunted in Germany. that's essentially what it is.
Yes.
So
that's why I liked Blink in this episode. Her one-liners with Johnny in this episode were like fun. Like she was fun. The banter between the two siblings was fun, but it's not quite there yet. Like it's missing that perfection thing, right? Like, yeah.
I'll ask you a question. What are your expectations of next week?
My expectations next week? Well, after seeing the preview, I've got different expectations than if I hadn't seen the preview for next week. So originally my expectation for it was going to be like a big throwdown between Campbell's crew and the Underground, and like just a big mutant battle to see who's going to come out on top at the end of this season. And I would expect like somebody to turn, like a betrayal. I would expect some stakes, like a possible death. So there's things that I would have predicted. It looks like maybe it's going to be more an episode about revealing a bunch of big secrets that tie into the Marvel to the X-Men universe. I think that might be the way they go, so that the big moments aren't necessarily these big battle moments, but are like these big reveals. And I don't know how I feel about that yet. So we'll see. Like, what are your expectations for next week?
Yeah, I think we're going to get big reveals. I think the end of, and I could be totally wrong on this, it's just like the end of next episode will be, we find out Blink was the one who helped the X-Men escape to wherever they are, or Dr. Campbell finds out Lorna is Magneto's daughter and like targets her, like that's the one I want, you know, it's something big like that. And there will be a battle. There'll definitely be a battle in there. And the other side story will be Reed finding out the truth. I hope it's not just with the twins, with the brother and sister, because I think we all know that.
We already know that. Yeah.
I mean, they practically laid it out for you in the scenes for next week. So I don't know. Maybe they feel like they had to do that because they wanted to hook more people in. I don't know. But those scenes seemed kind of spoilery to me.
It seemed really spoilery to me. I was like, oh, that's what the episode's going to be. Interesting.
But maybe there's more to it, which would be rad.
That's just the first like 15 minutes. Yeah. So for everything we cover, you can head over to www.nerdrotic.com. All of our content is there, as well as a schedule for all of our upcoming shows, including Mr. Robot, which Gary and Dennis are covering, and Star Trek Discovery, which just ended. But we just got the mid-season finale, but we're going to have some other stuff like Runaways and potentially some Punisher coverage coming up, as well as the Nerdrotic News show, the official Nerdrotic podcast, which is in the hundreds of episodes at this point. So we're doing well. You can also listen to us if you're a audio file on the iTunes podcast app or on SoundCloud. We're the Nerdrotic Podcast on both of those. Most people, it seems, are finding us on YouTube at the Nerdrotic channel on YouTube. So head on over there and subscribe. It helps us a lot if you guys comment on the videos, like us, or thumbs up or thumbs down, however you feel about it. We always take into account the constructive comments that we get about the show. We also love to hear your theories about what's going on the TV shows we're covering. So yeah, the best way to do that is either on YouTube in the comments for each video or at facebook.com/nerdrotic podcast, where we post all of the news stories of the week and our impressions of things that are going on, as well as all of our content. So head over to facebook.com/nerdrotic podcast and like us there. You can follow me on Twitter. I'm at Jon Reed 16, JONREED 16. Gary manages the official Nerdrotic stream, Twitter feed stream at Nerdrotics. That's with an S. And yeah, that's I think that's everything.
This is such a late podcast for us.
I know. This is a late one for us, guys.
Oh, those damn day jobs. Yeah. Good show. Looking forward to next week. Very disappointed that next week is it, but we'll just have to deal.
What's up with that? I'd love, like, just real quick. Everywhere I read says that The Gifted was 13 episodes, but then it's conflicting, right? It almost looks like it got a 13 episode order and then they only produced 8. What happened there?
Yeah, I don't know. I like I said, the impression I got in San Diego at the Comic-Con was this was going to be like a full season. They did the best marketing. They did the whole 23andMe thing there. You can get your gene tested and they would give you real results. And it was like $200 worth of gene testing for free. You had to wait in a stupid line and it was like, 90 degrees outside, but it was totally worth it. I don't do that stuff, but Dennis did.
Yeah. I think that
it came back that he's an a-hole. No, I'm just kidding. I love you, Dennis. It's in his genes. No.
An X-hole. So I kind of, it's interesting to me because it almost feels like, I feel like sometimes viewers of TV shows don't account for like execution, right? Like there was this kind of idea at the beginning of the season, like, oh, this is just Heroes redone. And it has elements of Heroes in it, but it's such a different show in tone and feel, right? Like it's like saying like, oh, these are both vampire shows. So like Buffy and Vampire Diaries are the same thing. It's like, no, like one is executed very differently than the other, right? And I almost feel like sometimes these shows suffer because the people look at it on face value and say like, oh, this is like this other thing I didn't like, or, oh, this is like this other thing I did like. And some things can get caught. And like The Gifted is really its own thing. It has all these different elements of a show like Angel or a show like Heroes, but it really is executed on a different, on a very different tone than we get. So this isn't The Flash, right? Like this is a different thing. And I hope people can binge this first season and start coming around on it so that we get more episodes in future seasons. Because there's something I think special about this show. It hasn't hit its stride yet. I'm waiting for that moment where it does.
Yeah, the problems that beset this show are because it is a good show, but it's kind of painted itself in a corner with not the greatest title in the world. Like color palette wise, little bland, except when like the mutants use their powers, especially I think Blink and Polaris really stand out when they use their powers, and it looks amazing.
Yes.
And I know how it started. It's supposed to be this underground thing, and I know how it started. But mainly that name is just terrible. But it is. But it needs to, because I think from the outside, if you aren't watching every episode, this looks like just an average show. Just average. And it needs to break away from average. This is because it is
above average, and it has potential to be even better than that. So yeah, you're right.
This is the first Marvel superhero show on network TV since the Incredible Hulk. We got Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.,
Inhumans,
and Inhumans. I guess they came out around the same time, and that's legit superhero, but that didn't work. That just didn't work.
No, it did not.
No, it did not.
But this did. I think this is working. And again, I think that given time with these characters, the actors can really give it more. And given time with the story, these writers are capable of taking a foundation like they've given us, which is a very, very, very strong foundation, and making something like spectacular. So yeah. I'm just kind of crossing my fingers.
This is a good showrunner. Like this, I am really happy with Matt Nix. I have no doubt that this guy will turn it into something cool if he gets a chance.
I'm like really annoyed that this didn't get like 22 episodes. Like I would love to see 22 episodes of how Matt Nix would like to expose a story over time. Like,
well, this does feel like the first, sorry to interrupt. It does feel like the first half of a 22 episode season.
Yes,
like
it
feels
does.
like this is a mid-season break. So
that we're not going to get the second half of, right? Like that's the problem. So anyway,
maybe they rush into production a little sooner. You never know. I mean,
I hope so.
The ratings aren't horrible. I just checked them today. They're getting like overnight it's like 3 million, which, I mean, it's better than Supergirl, it's better than CW shows, but it is on a bigger network, so I know they
but Fox's expectations have gone down a bit. Like I feel like, well, if they're trying to sell the content, they may not care too much about what happens with this show. But if they weren't trying to sell stuff, all this content off.
Well, it wasn't long ago that a hit show was getting 24 million views, like American Idol, stuff like that. But what was I looking, The Voice and some other show, like they're number one at 10 million views. And they're happy with that. And the other shows are hanging in around 5-6 million. Gifted is on the lower end at 3.4. And like Supergirl was at like 1 million, which is still okay for the CW. Yeah, I'm sure they've tempered, and they've also the Gifted has done well on people, viewing it on DVRs or downloading it later. That's what it's done well on. So I think that's where we're going to get our hope is.
Yeah, I do have hope for that. What's crazy, I wish Fox had that reality show that cost nothing to make, that made lots of money for the network, that then they could have patience with some of these other shows. Like CBS has the luxury of giving shows time because they make so much money off of Survivor and Big Brother because they cost nothing to really make, and then they compete with some of the bigger shows on the nights that they're on. Fox doesn't really have one of those, so they're like banking on these shows like The Gifted to go up against shows like that were way cheaper to produce, so the profit margins are way larger. So I wish that Fox had those other shows that they could eat a little bit of give The Gifted time to grow over time. But Fox is in the place that a lot of other networks are, where they don't have that luxury. So if they're not getting the views, the advertising money isn't there, and the whole network's at risk. So that's where I'm worried, because I think that if they looked at it just on quality, this show would definitely get more. Like it would get time to really develop,
Yeah, I think CBS makes a lot of money off of its Big Bang Theory too, right? Don't they?
Yeah. But they are a lot like the big, like, I don't know, but I feel like those shows take a little time to develop their audiences, and so they give them the time to do that. Like those shows are in their like 15th season, whatever it is, season now. I don't think they were quite as big early on. Like I feel like they gained views over time, not the other way around.
Yeah,
so, I don't know.
I know. Yeah, little sitcoms can be very profitable, though.
Oh yeah,
and that's
and those procedure. I mean, CBS is like the exact TV most of us don't want to watch because it's procedurals, sitcoms, and reality, and like that's what you get there. At least Fox goes out on a limb with stuff like this. It's just that because those three genres are so successful for CBS, they can play around. They could theoretically play around more. Fox doesn't have, wouldn't have that luxury.
Well, we could do a whole podcast on how Hollywood could save money without changing their shows at all. Getting rid of, multiple assistants and, we've worked down there. There's a lot of fat that can be trimmed, tons, without changing the quality of a show at all. All right, man.
So I think the next episode is going to be fun. I think if we get a next season, it's going to be good. And I really dug this episode a lot. I
did too.
For a lead up episode to a finale, I think this was a good one.
I needed a couple cups of coffee to stay up this late, but it's all good. Now I'm not going to sleep. Great. No, that's okay. So I guess I'll take us out, John. Guys and gals, may the small folks sing songs of your greatness.
Awesome. Bye, everybody. See you next week.